Um, what year did you move, or were you born in Old Orchard?
I moved to Old Orchard in 1944. I was raised by my grandparents, and they had a hotel on the beachfront off of East Grand Avenue. I'm still here.
Do you have any siblings? Yeah. Do you have any
Yes,
siblings?
I have two sisters. One lives in Massachusetts. Her name's Guerin. And I have a sister that lives in West Bath. Her name is Violet. And I have a brother, John, that's passed. Being raised by my grandparents, my grandfather used to have a big snow shovel, and he would make me a hill from the driveway going down to the beach on the sand, and I could slide right from the driveway onto the sand on the beach, so it was great. And during the summertime, as being a hotel, we had mostly Canadian guests at the hotel, and we had cottages as well. So during the summer, it was busy with all kinds of people, met a diverse amount of different types of people, which was great. And during the winter, it was back to our quiet little town, which I liked.
Did you go through the Old Orchard Beach school system?
Yes, I started here in kindergarten, and one of the funny things was my grandparents were French, and I only knew French. So when I started kindergarten with Mrs. Taylor, my grandmother bought the book that she would be teaching from, and the night before, she knew what lessons Mrs. Taylor was going to do, so she would read it to me in English and translate it in French, so I know what she was saying, and that's how I learned the English language. So I still have one of my report cards from kindergarten, and at the beginning it said Jeanne was shy, and at the Christmas time reporting it said Jeanne won't stop talking. So I guess it came kind of easy. I went from kindergarten to my junior year of high school in Old Orchard. My junior year, I switched to St. Andrews, a parochial school in Biddeford, and I graduated from there.
Teachers that were in the school?
Yes, I remember quite a few of them. Mrs. Taylor, of course, in kindergarten. And then we had Miss Margoni in the 4th grade, I remember her. And we had two Mrs. Smiths, different people in the 5th and 6th grade. I remember Mrs. Catherine O'Neill was the 8th grade teacher, and then we had a variety of high school teachers. When I was in high school, it was Mr. Jerome LaPelletier that was the teacher here. Pelletier that was the teacher here, the principal.
Yeah. Do you remember any, like, did you have like allied arts back then, like library, gym?
Yes, we took gym. I enjoyed. I was on the field hockey team, and I enjoyed badminton during the gym classes. I joined the band, so we had Mr. Ernest Brousseau teaching the band how to march. Mr. Himalayan was there at the time as a music teacher.
Are there any stories about like the history of Old Orchard Beach that you'd like to share with us?
Old Orchard is rich in people that came from all over the country to the pier to play at the end of the pier, which is no longer there today. So we had many big bands. All the big bands came here, the Glenn Millers, the Dorsey Brothers. The one that came the most often was Duke Ellington. He came 19 times to Old Orchard. They had two ballrooms at the time. One was at the end of the pier, and the other one was in the Palace Playland area that had a big building there. So the bands played at both of those things. And then that closed in the 1960s. And then in the 1980s, the bands came to the ballpark, and we had several big names there. We went to see Hugh Louie and the News there, so there was quite a few big bands playing there. So it was a fun place to be, you know, with all the activities going on here.
Are there any like, were there any like big landmarks that people might not know about like today?
The pier would be one of them
Yeah.
that was taken down by the storms. Most of the other places are still here. A lot of the homes on Portland Avenue are on the historical criteria.
What was your favorite place to hang out, like as a kid, as a teenager, now? And is it still here?
Being raised by my grandparents, I had a very secluded life, and being on East Grand Avenue side, it wasn't very well populated during the winter because most of them were your summer rentals that were there. So there were 2 or 3 other families with children my age there, and so we didn't hang out that much, no. It was school activities that we did. Our band practices for marching band were during the early evening or late afternoon, so that took care of daylight hours.
Or were you there when the pier burned down?
Yes, I was. My husband was a fireman, so when the alarm came in, we were at the hotel helping my grandfather with the guests, because we had bought our own home on Seaview Avenue. And so we were there to see the whole burn, which was quite devastating. They did, just before going up on the pier, they had a donkey ride there, the coal mine, and passers-by and the people who were running it, the employees, helped take the donkeys out. It was a coal mine that it was a hole in the ground that you could go down into, and they rescued all of the animals so that they wouldn't be hurt. Noah's Ark went down, the famous carousel, which was our biggest loss, because the carousel was made by Damsel, and at the time there was only 3 carousels made by that famous Damsel in the world, and when we lost it, it was irreplaceable to the same quality. We currently do have another carousel, but it's not to the same value that the one that burnt was, so that was a big loss as far as something that was really unique and not there anymore.
In Old Orchard, like when you were a teenager, maybe?
I helped at the church quite a bit at St. Margaret's. For a few years, I took care of the teachers that taught in the grade schools there. And then I worked on the pier in the 90s. I ran 7 shops. I was on the first one up on the pier, which is now Hooligans. It was a large gift shop there, and worked there and managed the others that were up on the hill for the owner of the store. I was not the owner. And now I'm currently the curator for the Old Orchard Beach Historical Society. So I work there during the summer. We're open 5 days a week, so I'm there from 10 to 2. And during the winter, we only meet on Tuesdays. And I'm fortunate to have 10 Old Orchard Beach volunteers that help run the museum. So it's a fun place to be, and you learned a lot about Old Orchard.
Did you graduate from high school?
I graduated from high school in 1957.
That's cool.
I like to walk the beach, and I like it when we have our voting in the school, because you get to see people that you don't normally get to see, old acquaintances. I think the library is a great place also where we can meet people that we don't daily associate with and see, so it's a fun thing to do.
Did you, when you go for walks on the beach, do you have any dogs or cats?
I have 2 dogs at home. My Sheltie is 13 years old, her name is Sophie, and I have an 8-year-old pit bull mix, and his name is Rex.
Do you take them on the walk?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they like it, but I don't let them loose. 'Cause my Sheltie would follow me, she doesn't need a leash, she's right by my side all the time. But my younger one would just run right off, and I don't trust him off the leash.
Yeah.
I like the fact that it's a small community. When I was connected with the school, when my children, I have 4 daughters, and they all went to school here in Old Orchard, and they joined the band, and they were in the color garden.
Oh, me too.
So we started a winter garden, because with a marching band, they were active only in the fall. So we initiated the winter garden so that it would keep them involved and still part of the band. And we traveled every weekend to Massachusetts for competitions. And then we went to semifinals in Tennessee, and we came out national as second in our class. We were Class B at the time, and the classes went by the number of school, how big your school was.
What was the name of your winter guard?
We called it the main attraction,
Oh my gosh.
and it's still main attraction
I'm the main
today.
attraction.
Yes, so,
We just started practices,
yes.
and it's so fun.
Yeah. In fact, Margaret, that's your
She's still doing
teacher now, was in the winter guard when we started it, and her mother helped me, Gloria Sanborn helped me, so it was
She still comes.
Gloria and I and 3 or 4 other parents had joined in, and it was a fun time. You'll have to talk to Margaret about it, because we have some great memories of
Yeah.
that. And when we went to Massachusetts, we'd sleep on the gym floor, and it was a great time. We enjoyed that very much.
What were some things in the OOB that like drastically changed from like, let's say, from your childhood now?
It's gotten a lot bigger. One thing that I've noticed, not being involved with the school any longer, when we go to the grocery store, we don't know everybody anymore, like we used to when we were involved. Being involved with the school, you get to meet and know more people in the community. I think that's one of the changes for me. Not that it's a change in Old Orchard, but it's just you have to keep involved with local items, local functions, to get to know more of the people. When I was involved with the school and the color guard, no matter if I went to Zaharis's for a night for the grocery store, or Radley's at the time, it's now Landry's, you just knew everybody that was in there. So that's a little change for me.
Today?
I think Old Orchard is a wonderful community because it's small. People are always concerned about one another, they care for one another. You go to the town hall and they all know you, they're friendly. And I think if I was living in a bigger city, I wouldn't have the closeness to the people in the community that you have here. And I think the fire service and the police department have a close relationship with most of the people. So it's a friendly community as far as we know, and I think it's a great place to be. You don't get lost in the crowd in Old Orchard. You're special.
Mm-hmm.